Because there's been so much disinformation about vaccines that kids are sick right now to the extent that people are dying. There are people that have died as a result of this antic. The thing about the Constitution is that it has always been a balancing test. There are limits to this. The big difference between Democrats and Republicans is that we don't just say we believe in the Constitution, but we walk it like we talk it.
Jasmine Crockett, who is one of the brightest young stars in the Democratic Party, offered a spirited takedown of the MAGA establishment and their billionaires who like to pretend it's other billionaires who are the problem. So we're going to jump into this and then provide the much needed context after. Be sure to like the video. It helps us out a ton, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.
George Soros nor Bill Gates ever somehow decided to turn off the spigot of money that was going through to various organizations and agencies to the extent that it had actually been ordered by law that they should have access to it, to the extent that people are dying. There are people that have died as a result of this antic, and there are now farmers that are screaming that they may lose their family farms because we have over $500 million worth of food that is sitting and not going anywhere because of the attempt to shut down U.S. aid. So let me tell you, that is the big difference between the two of them. And let me also tell you that a big difference between Democrats and Republicans is that we don't just say we believe in the Constitution, but we walk it like we talk it. What does that mean? That means that if we believe in the Constitution, we don't just pick out the Second Amendment and say that it is limitless, nor do we pick out the First Amendment and say that it is limitless. The thing about the Constitution is that it has always been a balancing test. There are limits to this.
She is really going off here, and I hate to interrupt her, but that part at the end is super important. There are limits to this. The executive was never meant to have this kind of power and never should have this kind of power. We are a democracy, not a dictatorship, and respect for the Constitution, for the core principles of America, is to respect this fully, not to, as she said, pick out the First Amendment because you want to say the N-word, or the Second Amendment because guns are sick, dude. But to understand that these inherently liberal democratic structures that stand as a basis of what make America, America, the rights that we provide to the states to allow to its people the assurances against the overarching federal government is important. And to respect this and put it above all else is to love the country, above individual, above party, above everything.
There are limits. And I can tell you that one of those limits typically is around hate crimes. You may or may not know that when it comes down to it, if somebody decides that they want to send something hateful in, say, the U.S. mail, they can actually go to prison for that, up to 5 years in prison. So yes, there are always going to be limits. So when we start to talk about Trump and him being pulled down on any platform, this just happened to be after he incited an insurrection. This just happened to be after, in a bipartisan way, this particular chamber decided that they were going to impeach him. So there was something a little different about what he did, because as we know, it led to people actually dying.
This is prescient to the Republican worldview. The rule of law is only useful in so much that it's benefiting them. Trump should be allowed to start an insurrection because freedom of speech. Rittenhouse should be exonerated because of self-defense. But when it's inconvenient to them, then you rail against it because how much does it really matter? When George Zimmerman is let off, when Rittenhouse is let off, when the Supreme Court rules in Trump's favor, we have to respect the judicial system. However, when a judge blocks Trump from overstepping the power of the executive, well, we can't let the judicial system stop us from doing what's right and democratic. And now Trump is posting on social media that you can't break the law when you help the country, which is a quote directly from fascists. And I mean, this party is so overtly fascist that it's almost shocking at times, despite the fact that I saw it coming the entire time.
I just want y'all to be honest. You want to sit here, you want to lie, because so often we hear, well, you know, yeah, we did lie. In fact, he admitted that he lied when he was in the Oval Office yesterday. But if it's a lie that will get you into office, such as saying, I know nothing about Project 2025, yet on day one, you literally do everything that you can to implement it, including making sure that you put, say, one of the main architects of Project 2025 over the OMB, it's okay, so long as you get the power that you seek. The problem is that the game is going to be on the American people. And when I say the American people, I mean all of us. Unfortunately, I am also stuck in the twilight zone because of the lies that were allowed to be propagated. Just like when you're talking about vaccines and all this nonsense. Right now in my state of Texas, there is an outbreak of measles. And what they are finding is that because there's been so much disinformation about vaccines, that kids are sick right now with measles that they did not have to have if they just trusted doctors and experts instead of randoms online. So I will.
And the reason these people put these kids' lives at risk with their anti-vax nonsense is so they can turn around and sell them elixirs or cures or whatever to make profit off of things that they know will never really make them better. Because if you make them better, I mean, that ends the stream of money. And it's sad that people are really falling for it. And now we're seeing the effects where people who didn't even fall for it are being affected by those dragging us down because of their convoluted delusions, just like they fell for the Project 2025 lie, despite us on the left trying to assure you the entire time that it was their plan. I mean, Trump literally did not update his campaign agenda for Agenda 47 for over 16 months, literally from the day that Project 2025 was published. He did not touch it. Now, multiple authors from Project 2025 have crucial jobs, including Russell Vought, including Tom Homan. Russell Vought overseeing all government budgeting. We've already seen him kill the CFPB that has saved the middle class over $20 billion from scams from rich tech bros like Musk, like Zuckerberg, like Bezos, who are all now in Trump's corner as well. Or, as I mentioned, Tom Homan overseeing the border stuff. You have Trump putting in over 200 executive orders in 20 days, of which around 85 to 90% directly are pulled from Project 2025. He's openly attempting to defy the judicial branch, which is also a core part of Project 2025. And I hate to say I told you so, but exactly what I said would happen is happening exactly how I said it would happen. He's just doing Project 2025 anyway, but he's just not ever going to say those words because they have a negative connotation to them. But he knows that MAGA will never actually read Project 2025, but will instinctively jump to his defense. I mean, hell, most voters in general won't read it. Most liberal Democratic voters won't read it either, right? But MAGA will defend it without reading him. And given that most people won't read it, they won't know what it is if he never says what he's doing is it, which allows him avenues to always deny it, which is why I and others who have read it should always do the due diligence of calling it out every single time that we see it. Because it was rejected by the American people, rightfully so, as it should have been, as the fascistic agenda that it is.